This is Ryan Barna. Today is Wednesday, August 5th, 2009. I'm here in Joe Franklin's office here in New York City, and I'm very honored to have to be by his side today. How many interviews was it said that you did? Like 10,000 or more?
You mean my entire career?
Yeah.
Let's say over 500,000.
Yikes.
I had 5 U.S. presidents. I had Charlie Chaplin. I had Frank Sinatra 4 times. Bing Crosby, Jay Giles Band. I had Cary Grant. I had John Wayne. I had people that, certain people I had 100 times. Otto Preminger 100 times. Georgie Jessler about 90 times.
Yikes.
And, certain people over and over with. They didn't even have to be booked on my show. They had open house. They could just walk in anytime they wanted and sit down on my panel and chat with me.
Well, we're going to discuss a subject that I don't think too many people have, discussed with you nowadays, and that's just the old records of the pre-1920s period, the acoustic era, particularly some of the folks that I know that you had met in your career, like Billy Murray and Arthur Fields and
Irving Kaufman.
Irving Kaufman, yeah,
I was
absolutely.
very close with Irving. He used to take me to a place down the village where he sang. I was about 18 years old, and he would, somebody put out a compilation of his stuff. I'm sure you got that album.
Oh, yes. Why don't we start kind of discussing a couple things in order. One thing that I would particularly like to know is your friendship with Billy Murray. When did you first meet Billy Murray?
I used to meet Billy Murray on Fridays and Saturdays in a store called Jack Caden's old record shop on 7th Avenue, the 50th Street, 51st Street, and I'd meet him there with a man named Monroe Silva. And we'd have lunch, and I got very friendly with. I met his wife once. I think her name was Madeline.
Yes.
And I think he died with her one night at the Jones Beach, right, watching a show. Died watching the show or after the show. And I went with him several times to meet Jimmy Martindale.
Yes.
Who's gone now, I guess, right?
Yeah, and he used to publish the Martindale-Hubbell legal directories.
That's right. Very, very nice man. He was a fanatic. He had every Billy Murray record. And there were thousands of them, right? Not just hundreds, thousands.
Yeah, probably a few thousand. What was your first impression of him?
Well, first of all, he looked just like James Cagney. Same face, same Irish crackle, and never lost his youthful vitality. Never lost that youthful spirit.
So, what year was this when you first met him?
I would say about. I was a kid. I would say. I would say about 1941. 41, 42.
And did you used to go over to his house?
No, that I never did.
No.
In Freeport, no.
Oh.
Was it Freeport?
Yeah, he was living in Freeport.
Right. He was a wonderful man. And, he was also fond of his animal sounds on records, the Brunswicks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like the children's records.
Stuff like that, right. And he was a wonderful man. Funny man.
Did you ever get to ask him much, or were you just kind of casual friends with him? Ask about his early career?
I would ask him about his days with Walter Scanlon.
Oh, yeah?
Whose name was once Walter J. Van Brunt, right?
Yes.
And all I can say is I got very fond memories of Billy Murray.
And when was the last time you met him?
I would say, what year did he die? 54?
1954.
Yeah, I would say about 1949, 1950. We sort of tapered off. But he was always fun to be with, never lost a sense of humor, never got grouchy, never got gloomy or moody. He was always upbeat, always smiling.
I also heard that he was a very modest man and didn't really like to answer that many questions about himself.
It's true. Very, very well put.
And you were also saying that another one of your probably one as you told me, your favorite is Henry Burr.
I was a fanatic on Henry Burr. I'd race home on Saturday nights to hear him on the National Barn Dance. I used to belong to a club called the Silver Streaks. My club members in those days included Bernard Schwartz, who later on became Tony Curtis. And I would leave the meetings in the middle to race home to hear Henry Burr sing on the National Barn Dance.
Did you ever get to see him in person?
Never met him in person. No, I got all kind of correspondence from him, all kind of photographs, all kind of magazine write-ups that he sent me.
So you used to write to him?
Yeah, he was in Chicago. and I think or Elkhart, Indiana. No, it was Chicago, WLS,
Mm.
and they called him the Dean of Ballad Singers.
Mm-hmm.
He died at the age of 56 or 59.
Mm.
I think the same day as Brace Beamer of Lone Ranger fame died the same day, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a lot of, like, I do a big portfolio of Henry Burr material.
Oh, yeah?
And I'm still trying to track down some of his songs from National Barn Dance days.
Mm-hmm.
But he was a very definite personal favorite of mine.
Yeah.
Great voice.
Yeah, I imagine those National Barn Dance programs are hard to find nowadays.
Very
I mean,
hard.
I have one that was...
Out of the Dusk to You?
Yes, mm-hmm.
I've got that too, yeah.
Still sounds like his same old self.
Fantastic. I think I've got The Blind Plowman
Haven't heard that.
and When Summer Is Gone. Got them right here.
Oh, I
I'll
see your office is really packed here. You know where everything is in here?
Well, I know the order of my disorder. 9 times out of 10, I can put my finger on certain things that I'm missing or lacking. But it's just my way of life, you know.
Well, when did you actually start collecting old 78s?
Well, it happened in a funny way. I was the record picker for a man named Martin Block on a program called the Make Believe Ballroom, which is before your time. He was the #1 disc jockey in history. And then the phone rang. Want to grab a Johnny? Wait.
Yeah.
And then
Right.
it's okay, let it ride. And then Martin Block liked me so much he got me my own radio show. And it was kidding me. He said, "Joe, don't compete with me." He's only being sarcastic, only being facetious when he said that, because nobody. So I'm guaranteed tonight, 6 o'clock, Johnny, guaranteed. So he says, he was the king of new records. He would make he'd introduce a record on the air that became an immediate bestseller. So he said, "Don't compete with me, Joe." So to be cute, I ran out. I bought old records for a penny apiece. I buy Rudy Valley, Kate Smith, Eddie Cantor, Al Jolson, and I go on the radio and say, "Ladies and gentlemen, here's a collector's item. This collector's item is worth $500. I go back the next day, I put down 5 pennies, walk out with 5 old records to deal and say, "Come here, kid." I said, "What do you mean, kid?" He said, "I heard a guy on the radio last night saying these records are worth $500. So I single-handedly, I created the whole rare record market, so to speak. You know? So by being that aggressive in my thoughts on the radio, I built up the whole rare record market, which they're not really that rare today either. But I gave it what you call theatrical license, you know. But it was only Martin Block's choice remark about not competing with him that I decided to. Then I met George M. Cohan once in Central Park when I was a kid.
Central Park.
Yeah, I recognized Feeding the Pigeons, and he gave me one of his old records, a one-sided record. But you won't do any business if you haven't got a band. And that was the beginning of my. I figured I'll get every George M. Cohan record ever made. He made about 7. And I realized starting out to get every Henry Burr, every Billy Murray, I realized that my life course was pretty well charted out for me.
I'm sure this is probably a fraction of all the stuff that you've collected over the years.
Oh, yeah. I love Arthur Fields, I love Irving Kaufman. When I got I started my own radio show on WNW, one of my first guests was a man named Charles Harrison.
Oh, yes.
Who lived in Jersey. He was in a Broadway show called Jackowski and the Colonel at that time, I think it was. And he was a great guest. He gave me one of the little LP, which I had someplace in my house.
Well, we'll get to those in just
subsequently, right?
Yeah, in just a minute or two. One thing I'd also like to know is your friendship with Arthur Fields. When did you meet him?
Well, I was closer with Fred Hall, his partner. Fred Hall was a pianist on my TV show for a couple of years. And he was a tall, good-looking man. They had a show on Sundays or weekends called Sunday Drivers. Where are the Sunday Drivers? Have you that show? Any tapes of it? That was a popular thing in the mornings on Sunday. And he sang songs that he had recorded on the Harmony label in the late 20s called When You See the Man with Little White Cane. That's the song that he cannot see you. You hear that title?
Yeah.
And but in his heyday, he certainly had a great sound.
Yeah, he did a lot of radio work during the 1930s, like Sunday Drivers. I'm pretty sure that was about traffic safety as one. And there was a children's show he had Saturday mornings called No School Today.
That's right, No School Today. You're right.
But when did you, when and where did you actually see Fields in person, if you can remember?
Only in the hallways. I used to go to watch his program on WJZ in those days.
Oh yeah, it was the Woodshedders, I think it was.
One of the right. It was sponsored by Kelvinator or something. I don't know. Whatever it was. I got several copies of his autograph on scraps of paper in my apartment.
Oh yeah.
But I never got that close with him. I was much closer with Irving Kaufman.
Oh yeah.
Kaufman used to MC a show called the Hearns Kitty Hour every Saturday morning at Hearns Department Store.
I never even heard of that one.
On 14th Street, right? I used to go to watch that show. And Kaufman was known as Lazy Dan, the minstrel man.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever hear that show?
I'm not even sure if there's any transcriptions that exist of that. Is there?
Garden into Space. It was on every Sunday afternoon, sponsored by Old English Floor Wax.
Mm-hmm.
That was a very popular show. But
I read in one of Jim Walsh's collection. He has a collection of all the stuff that he kept. It's include like letters from Ray Walker and a couple from Fields. And I read in one of the Ray Walker letters that he was on the radio with you and Fred Hall.
Ray Walker was a very dear friend of mine. He wrote Poor Pauline.
Yeah.
And
about the Pearls of Pauline.
That's the guy. He was on with Fred Hall. Fred Hall was, he drank a little bit. I don't know if you know that.
No, I didn't.
It was hard to hold up on the piano.
Well, I heard that you and Ray Walker and Fred Hall kind of got on the radio and did a little tribute about Arthur Fields just after he died in 1953. Are you familiar with his death?
I'm sure. Yeah, I know he died in a nursing home. He was identified only by his teeth.
Yes.
Sad ending in a fire. But he certainly had a beautiful voice.
But as soon as you brought up Irving Kaufman, you sound really enthusiastic about him. When did you first meet Irving Kaufman, by the way?
When I was working for Martin Block, Irving Kaufman. I met him in the village. I think the owner of the radio station named Bernice Judas in those days. She owned WNEW. She was a big fan of his, and she used to take me down to meet him. Listen to him sing in some nightclub in the village. He was already past his prime, but it was still. He had a tremendous commercial going on the radio called "I Am Nuts About the Good Old USA Chateau Martin Wine."
Yeah, he was a crazy Frenchman on that.
Tremendously popular. It was on every station, day and night.
Yeah, I would really like to hear some of the stuff, some of the things that he did on radio and some of those commercials. But I've never even heard that commercial anywhere.
Gone into space somewhere.
Yeah.
But he was very popular in commercials.
And I know that you were, as you said, you were very good friends with him. How often would you meet him?
Maybe once a month. We had dinner a couple nights in Lindy's, one of those restaurants.
Yeah, and Belle Brooks was his wife as well.
That's right, Belle Brooks, that's right. And Jack Powell, the drummer, was his son-in-law, I think it was. Jack Powell, the comedy drummer.
Oh, yes. Yeah, he married one of his daughters.
Exactly.
And she's still alive today. I mean, I'm still in communication with her.
Where does she live?
She lives in White Plains. And I just had in fact, I just received a card from her not too long ago, and I still haven't answered. I'm really bad with...
What's her name?
Her name's Carol.
She's not a kid, huh?
Not anymore. I have several magazines during the 1930s, lots of radio magazines that show her as a kid. And, of course, Irving Kaufman was so popular on radio at that time, the media covered him pretty well. And that also included his family. And, of course, his son died in the 1960s. And his first daughter, Eleanor, from what I last heard, she's still alive. And she was born in 1916, and she lives out in California. So she's still living, and she's well into her 90s now.
I'd like to be in touch with his daughter or whatever it was.
Yeah, she's still living. She's still living in White Plains.
She's not reluctant to talk about him?
No, no. In fact, and when I started corresponding with her, I was sending her a lot of copies of things that I found on her father, and she was really, really kind about it. She was quite enthusiastic, and she kept saying, "I will go up into the attic someday, and I will try to find stuff, but you have to be patient with me."
Are you in touch with the gentleman in I think he's a teacher. He lives in Canada, doing a big biography on Henry Burr.
Yes, Art Makazinski,
That's the guy, right?
Yeah, and we still correspond every now and
I
then.
had lunch with him about 2 years ago here in the city. Is he still? I guess he's a little bit behind on the project, huh?
Well, it was supposed to go out several years ago, and I guess he still has things coming up. In fact, I even turn up a couple things for him every now and then, and I guess he's still coming up with things.
Things he didn't have, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Like what, sir?
Well, I found this one article not long ago about Henry Burr. It appeared in this publication. It appeared in this farmer's publication called Farm and Fireside, and it was this little interview that this guy named Bob Dumb did for him. It kind of explained a little bit of his early years and how this undertaker would sometimes find work for him. I think that's how it went.
What year would you say the Peerless Quartet broke up? About 28?
Yeah, it must have been about 28. I mean, that was around the same time frame that the eight popular Victor artists broke up. I mean, that was like 1928, and they appeared in a couple films in very early 1929, but I haven't been able to find anything for them after 1929.
Have you found the films?
No,
They're very hard to
there is
track down.
one film. There is one film called At the Club, and it's just the film. The soundtrack disc is missing for it.
I found a record once of what they tell me was one of the first radio commercials sung by Henry Burr with or without the Peerless Quartet. It's called My Style Queen Girl. My Style Queen Girl. Was Style Queen Fashions. So I know that he was a pioneer in that field too, of radio commercials. He was a marvelous singer. I like the sad ones with the recitations, Memories of France.
Oh yeah.
My Dream of the Big Parade, right?
His voice always goes good with the Celesta.
Right.
You know, like you hear on a lot of those Victor records and the violins.
I know that Irving Berlin was very fond of Henry Burr. I read.
Oh, he liked him too?
Oh, he had him introduce not Blue Skies, but What'll I Do?
Oh yeah.
With Marcia Greer, people like that. Right?
So you knew Irving Berlin as well.
Very, very close. Very close with Irving Berlin.
And what kind of, I don't know if you ever asked him this, but do you know what kind of singers that Irving Berlin actually liked? You said Henry Burr was one of them.
Well, I guess he liked Fred Astaire. He liked the ones in California where he was well paid. Great songwriter.
Did you ever have any early phonograph artists on your early radio programs, like Billy Murray, if you had him in person?
I don't think Billy was ever on my radio show. We just never connected that way.
I know Charles Harrison was on your TV program.
Charles Harrison and so many more. I can't think of them right now. But I had so many. But never Henry Burr, sadly. Never Billy Murray. Never Arthur Fields.
No.
Irving Kaufman at least once or twice.
Do you know if any of your old early radio interviews or television programs still exist?
I got a DVD coming out any minute now called The Best of Joe Franklin. That'll be available soon.
Where are these archived at? Do you even know?
They're with a company someplace on Long Island. They're going to go through them all and put out a box set eventually.
Wow.
It's in the works.
Yeah, it'd be nice if we could see Irving Kaufman either on, or you didn't do TV with Irving Kaufman, did you?
Well, I probably did, but sadly in those days it was live and there was no kinescopes, no videotapes, nothing like that. It sort of gone into space.
Yeah. What about Charles Harrison?
Same thing, gone into space. Vanished into nothingness.
I still haven't heard the LP that he did for, I think it was a Gavotte label.
Charles Harrison. Yeah, he gave it to me. I got it home someplace. He sings The Sunshine of Your Smile and songs like that. I also like Maurice J. Gunsky. Are you named Maurice J. Gunsky?
Yes.
Some good records made. But there were so many good singers. I'm crazy about Louis James. Remember Louis James?
Yes. In fact, later on he would be a program director in Chicago.
And for a while, wasn't he connected with Frank Black's, one of James Melton, what was it called again, the quartet?
Was it the Revelers?
The Revelers, I think that was it, right? He had a beautiful voice.
And he made a lot of duets with Charles Hart. I like Charles Hart, too.
Yeah. And Franklin Bauer died very young.
Oh, yeah.
Very maybe in his 30s. He was in the Ziegfeld Follies for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Great day. Samuel Ash, remember Samuel Ash?
Yeah, he was a Broadway performer, and
Exactly.
later on he would appear in just as a character role in several films,
including the Laurel and Hardy movie. I forget the name of the movie. One of the Jitterbug was one of those funny ones.
Like any really, really old artists, like Edward M. Favor or Steve Porter, or
No, I like them, but I'd never met them.
oh yeah, those are all.
There was one named Will Halley.
Yes, he was a judge.
Exactly, I know his daughter. She still calls me.
Oh.
Great period, great days. I always did a segment on a radio show which I called Greats on 78s. I guess I'm one of the few who would play Henry Burr on the radio, or Billy Murray, people like that.
Do people still ask you about Billy Murray, or?
Very few, sadly. It's a vanishing era.
Yeah, there's very few people still. Yeah, there's few people out there who still who can say that they actually met the guy. I know a couple people. In fact, I know Billy's. How is she related? I think she's Billy's niece, I think. But yeah, they still actually have some of his belongings. I mean, some of them still exist. After his wife Madeline passed away, she got most of the belongings.
Who's this again? Who are we talking about now?
I believe it's Billy Murray's either niece or great niece or something like that.
Well, we have a lot in common, you and I, right?
Yeah.
I'd like to do an expanded interview one day soon.
Yeah.
Work in some vocal samples.
Yeah, when I first entered your office, of course, the phone was ringing off the hook. I mean, you're still pretty active nowadays. I mean, you got people. When I first came in here, and that was about 12 noon, I mean, you had the phone ringing off the hook. You still have your two assistants in here answering the phone for you.
I pay them weekly.
You pay them weekly?
Right.
Yeah, at my job I only get paid every other week, so...
What do you do?
Oh, I work for the National Park Service.
Oh.
Doing what? Oh, I do interpretation at the home of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, so I take people through the house. I get... Even at the end of the day, when we have to close up, I get to go inside the rooms they went in, so it's kind of like following in his trail almost.
You arrange events and things like that?
I don't do the arrangements. No, I just take the people through and I give them a little background about FDR and
tour, right?
And I show them the place where he lived, the place where he slept, the places where he had meetings with.
Where was that again?
Oh, this is in Hyde Park.
Right.
Hyde Park. He had a couple different homes. He had his main mansion, same mansion where he was born at, and a smaller home called Top Cottage that was built for him. And he would meet with famous leaders there, like King George VI and Winston Churchill.
I was very close with Eddie Cantor.
Eddie Cantor, yeah.
And he created the phrase for Franklin D. March of Dimes.
Oh yes.
And they were pretty close. They used to meet in Warm Springs, Georgia. Was that the place? I think so.
Yeah.
Let it rest for 1 second.
Okay. We'll be back just momentarily. Okay, so we're back, and Joe is asking me whether I had compiled anything on Billy Murray or Arthur Fields yet. Right now, I just did this. I'm still doing this huge website that is dedicated specifically to Billy Murray and all his accomplishments. It's more of like an archival site. Like I put a lot of articles on there and things about his biography, even stuff about his family. I mean, I have his whole family story out there, the drowning of his father, Patrick Murray, and in 1897. And
where was that?
That was in Denver, Colorado. And I'm not sure where Billy was at that time, but I believe he was already out west in California, because I've got an article of him performing at some minstrel show on the West Coast. But in 1897, it was during the time when Denver was having one of its floods, and Patrick wanted to rescue a piece of fence, prevent it from being swept away, but he accidentally fell into the river, and he eventually drowned. He was found, I believe, a day or two later.
Well, what was he doing when it happened?
He was trying to rescue a fence from being swept away in his backyard, and the river outside was flooding, and the bank caved in, and he fell, and that's how his father passed away.
What caved in?
Whatever bank or what kind of land he was standing on.
Billy was only a kid then, I guess,
huh? Yeah, he was. Must have been 18. About 20 at that time.
Right. He was
about 20 at that
great
time.
Singer,
mm-hmm. And he still had. Of course, he had a lot of siblings as well. I mean, he had.
Billy Murray.
Yeah, he had 3 brothers. One named Barton, who often came here to Long Island to visit him. He had one sister who died young. She was in her 30s when she passed away in 1909.
Yeah, you see the actor.
The man that came in, the older man.
Yeah, it sounded like a couple of good leads tonight between 6 and 7.
6 and 7 is okay, thanks for that.
You know, I was glancing through one of your books. That you also had Tiny Tim on one of your shows, and from what I know, he was also an enthusiastic fan of Henry Burr and all the old artists. I'll bet you two must have talked a lot.
He dedicated many of his routines to Henry Burr.
Mm-hmm.
Came on my show and sang a lot of Henry Burr songs. Liberty, Liberty, Liberty.
Uh-huh.
And Stay Down Here Where You Belong, which Irving Kaufman wrote about 1914 or 16.
Mm-hmm.
You heard that song, right?
Yeah, mm-hmm.
And he was a fanatic on Henry Burr.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny, tell him great news tonight between 6 and 7. I'll tell you when we start production.
But some of these people that, these old entertainers and some of these songwriters that you once knew, like Eddie Cantor and
Al Jolson
and
Georgie Price,
mm-hmm.
Georgie Jessel.
You ever talk old records with them, or some of the people that they knew, like Billy Murray? Or
no, they weren't that nostalgic. They weren't that sentimental at all. They lived only for now.
Mm-hmm.
They resented, as you brought up, the old days.
Oh yeah.
I was very close with Bob Hope, and if he would mention 1936 and the Ziegfeld Follies with him and Fanny Brice, he'd change the subject immediately.
He made Capitol 78s too, I know, I think.
Bob Hope?
Yeah.
Many, some with Margaret Whiting.
Mm.
He was great, he was the best.
Mm.
Jack Benny, they wouldn't reminisce too much.
No.
Phil Baker, Ben Burney, they wouldn't reminisce much, no.
I'm trying to think of who else would make a good subject. I know I brought up Charles Hart a few minutes ago.
That's right. He was wonderful.
And Charles Harrison, I mean, in my opinion, could almost go for a Red Seal artist almost.
Reinald Werrenrath.
Oh, yes. Reinald Werrenrath, you met him?
Very close. He was on my show several times.
Radio or TV?
Both.
You know, there is a guy out there named... Sorry about that. Joe had to go answer a phone, and he just brought some lunch for us, and now he's got another appointment we need to take care of, so we will just wrap this up for now. I'm sure we will meet again. It was so nice meeting you, Joe. I'm so honored to be here, knowing that after all the 500,000 interviews that you say you've done, and here I am interviewing you. I mean, it's such a pleasure to have you here and discussing about all these old artists and stuff that you probably haven't. And people who haven't asked you much about these things, but thank you for having me here today. Anything else you wanted to say?
I just want to say it's a pleasure to meet somebody who's keeping that flame aglow and doing our little bit to keep fond memories alive, because there aren't many of us left. And you're typical of so many young people that are into the good old days of 78, so let's do part 2 very soon, okay?
All right, well, thank you, Joe. Take care.